Oh, howdy all, grab yourselves a beer, it is time for some Path of Exile discussion. Today, I wanted to complete a series I've been doing on the Metamorph League challenges, and in this video, I'm going to be going through the 16 challenges that I feel are the hardest ones, and these are the ones you only really need to do if you're pushing for either 36 or 40 challenges. Now, these vary a lot in difficulty, and one thing I want to start by saying, I've put out separate videos for 12 and 24, but this is probably the easiest league to get 12 or 24 challenges in that's ever happened. It's also a pretty easy league to hit 36, although you will need to beat some difficult bosses to get there, and it may be quite difficult in solo self-found. Trade League, though, very easy to hit 36. However, be warned, 40 is monstrous, this league. It's not as hard as Delve was, but it's probably up there with some of the harder ones. And the reason for that is going to be the very last challenge, the endgame grinds. They're considerably bigger than they have been in some of the previous leagues. Anyway, all of that aside, let's get through to them. If you're looking for guides for any of the 24 challenges that I exclude from this guide, check either the 12 or 24 challenge guide, and I'll discuss them there. So first up is Complete These Encounters 5, and this is all about using Zana's map device and sextants to force more events into maps, and doing it quite a lot. So, Fortune Favors the Brave. This is just a 90 chaos sync. You're going to need to spend 3 chaos every time you do that. Actually, it's an 87 chaos sync because the first use is free. You'll get Fortune Favors the Brave very early, and this is just a case of remembering to use it a bunch of times, and you get that challenge essentially for free. Legion Monoliths will require you to do about 500 maps or fewer if you're using sextants and or scarabs. You'll find one Legion Monolith in approximately every 10th map. Beyond unique bosses is a lot easier to get credit for if you run maps that have Beyond rolled on them as a map mod, and also add Zana's map device, additional copy of Beyond from that. Those two stack, they will double the chance of causing a portal to spawn, which will way over double the amount of Beyond bosses you get. If you do that, you'll probably get 10 Beyond bosses a map, and so you'll very quickly hit your 50, as you can see here that I've done. Now, Activate Shrines is the reason that I put this out of the 24. This is the grindiest of these options, and it's one that's just going to take doing a lot of maps. Sextants will make this a lot faster. There is a sextant that's available at all 3 tiers, so that is a simple sextant, a prime sextant, and a awakener sextant, and these will add one shrine of a special type. There's either gloom shrines or resonating shrines. If you get the Awakened version, it will add both the Gloom Shrine and an additional random shrine on top of that, so you'll end up getting 2 extra shrines. Each time you roll that, and it's not a rare roll to get, that will get you closer and closer to this. So essentially, the short of this challenge is do lots of maps and do them with sextants on them, and you'll get credit for the first 3. The 4th one is just a case of opening 29 maps that you pay for Fortune Favors the Brave and 1 that you don't. Complete Blight Encounters is the easiest of the 16 challenges I'm going through here. Fully upgrade a tower just means that you need to initiate a Blight Encounter and then upgrade a tower 4 times, so create it and then upgrade it 3 more times. That's the easiest part of this to do. Then anoint a ring with a tower enchantment. All you need to do is spend 2 oils to do that. Anoint an amulet with a notable passive, spend 3. Because the amulet will help you anyway, this is something that's much more useful. Complete a Blighted map is the trickier part here. Blighted maps are not particularly expensive, although they're a couple of dozen chaos, but they can be pretty tricky fights, and they'll be messy if you're playing a build that isn't good at area of effect clearance, but they're also messy if you're only good at area of effect clear and you're terrible at bosses. However, the easiest way to do this is going to be to trade for a low tier Blight map from another player, and then hit it with an Orb of Scouring. If you want to make it easier still, the lowest tiers of oils can be used to anoint maps. Actually, every tier of oils can be used to anoint maps, but the lowest 3 make the map easier, whereas the last 9 make it more rewarding. So if you find a combination that you like of clear, azure, and sepia oils, and you'll be able to make it easier. So, Defeat Shaper and Elder Guardians is next. And this one is just a case of fighting some of the harder bosses from Path of Exile's previous endgame. The Guardian of the Chimera, Hydra, Minotaur, and Phoenix are found in special Tier 16 maps. There are 2 ways to get these. The first one is that when you kill a map boss in a tier 14 or higher map with Awakening bonus 2, and we'll discuss Awakening bonus later when we talk about the challenge hit Awakening bonus 8, you will have a 1% chance per 2 Awakening level. So that's rounded down. So if you've got Awakening level 7, it's 3%. So 3.5 is half of 7. Round down is 3. You get a 3% chance to get a random Shaper Guardian map. There are 4 different ones, and you're going to need to just run enough maps to get all of them. In practice, you should expect to get this after you've had the Atlas to Awakening level 6 or higher and run about 400 more maps. You'll have all of these drop. The actual fights themselves are a little bit challenging, but I'm pretty sure that if you're going for 36 challenges, you'll be able to beat them. And if you're in a trade league and you can't beat them, then you can always pay someone else to do the kill for you. The Constrictor, Enslaver, Eradicator, and Purifier are similar. They also have the same drop mechanic of you getting a map that will drop as an identified rare map of a normal map on the Atlas. But when it drops, again, 0.5% per Awakening level rounded down for killing a tier 14 and higher boss on your Atlas. Once you do that, it will then say, it'll have an additional implicit mod, and it'll say either area is influenced by the Elder and area is occupied by the Purifier, or maybe not the Purifier, it may be one of the other 3. So that's one source of how you can get the access to these zones. The other source is Zana's daily missions. Zana's daily missions are really lucrative this league, and I suggest that whilst you can use them frivolously while you're initially getting your Atlas set up and filling in holes on your Atlas, once you get to solidly farming endgame maps, you should be running Zana's missions on tier 15 and 16 maps, and should try and use them all. Zana will offer you a variety of maps. There will be some valuable unique maps, such as the Cortex. There will be some rubbish unique maps that you probably have no interest in doing, like a low tier version of Acton's Nightmare. And sometimes you will get a Shaper Guardian map or an Elder Guardian map. They'll sort of stand out a bit when you get one. They don't look like normal maps, so you'll be able to immediately tell you've got something a bit different there. Anyway, that's the way you access those fights. If you're looking for help with doing them, I have put up video guides for each of the Shaper Guardians, although the Minotaur one failed to upload, and so it's not uploaded, but there will be plenty of other guides available for the Minotaur. Constrictor, Enslaver, Eradicator, and Purifier guides will exist. I just don't have any of them. Next up, we have Complete Metamorph Encounters 4. And this is one of the other easier ones from this list of the hardest 16 challenges. Here, you need to find all of these maps. So you need to do a series of specific maps. These are basically most of the hardest maps in the map bosses in the game, not an exact list of them. You will need to then kill the map boss in the map, then create a metamorph out of it. You'll need to defeat that metamorph, and you will need to juice the metamorph enough that it fills up the bar on the right hand side to create an itemized sample. Same as when we discussed the easier obtain itemized samples challenge earlier. Then once you've done that, you will need to make complete sets out of these itemized map bosses and take them to Tane's laboratory and fight them there. So you'll actually get the credit, not when you kill the Eater of Souls in the core map, nor when you kill the metamorph made out of him, but you'll get the credit when you kill the metamorph in Tane's laboratory, where one of the 5 pieces is from the Eater of Souls. Whilst there's a bit of messing around for this, it's not particularly difficult. The core map is the hardest of these, and you just want to be careful because almost all of these have a very dangerous attack. Most importantly, watch out for Skullbeak. He's very easy in the maps, but metamorphs made out of him, metamorphs just with charge abilities are terrifying. They can really surprise you and kill you when you're really not expecting it, so watch out for that. Complete unique maps. Here we have one of these is very difficult, that is Hall of the Grandmasters, and of the others, some are expensive. Doriani's Machinarium, Perandus Manor, sometimes Vinkdar Square, sometimes Hallowed Ground, and sometimes the Coward's Trial. So basically, pick a total of 4 that you're going to skip, and you'll be fine. I suggest skipping Hoggum. It's really difficult, Hall of the Grandmasters, unless you've built a character specifically to beat it. and this goes triple if you're in Hardcore League. In terms of in fact, if you're in Hardcore League, you should just don't even pick up this map if it drops for you, unless you know exactly what you're doing. There's a number of mechanics in there that are absolutely brutal. There are monsters that can kill you from 12,000 life to 0 in faster than you can blink an eye. And there are also monsters that you can't hit under normal circumstances unless you rebuild your character in certain ways. So, skip all of the Grandmasters unless you know what you're doing. You probably want to skip Doriani's Machinarium and Parandus Manor because they're more difficult to find. They are the rarest maps on this list. And then just do all but one of the rest. Okay, so here we have Awaken the Atlas. This requires quite a bit of killing of Conquerors of the Atlas. To do this, you just need to have all 32 Watchstones socketed in there. You can cheat this a little bit by using Ivory Watchstones to turbocharge your progression if you want. So if you've actually unlocked 29 Watchstones through normal gameplay, you can then trade for Ivory Watchstones from other players and socket 3 of them in place of the Watchstones you don't yet own, and then you'll have the fully awakened Atlas. So that will get you this credit. But in practice, you're probably just going to want to do this anyway, because mapping with an Awakener level of 8 is very, very rewarding. Other than that, there's nothing much to do here to say about this other than just keep spawning Conquerors, keep fighting them whenever you've got an influence section of the Atlas, go and prioritize it, and you'll have this one done in, I won't say in no time, it'll be a lot of time, but it'll be within 1,000 maps. Next up we have Defeat Awakened Bosses. So this is basically free once you've done Awaken the Atlas. Once your Awakening level is 8, you can do this very easily by running these as white maps. So you don't need, when I say white maps, I don't mean white as in tier 1 to 5, I mean white as in hit them with a Scouring Orb and then run them. So if any of these bosses scare you, and some of them should because they're some of the harder bosses on the Atlas, Conley the Unrepentant is just long, not very hard. Mephod Earth Scorcher is one of the hardest bosses on the Atlas. He's the Aberrath themed one. Eater of Souls is Malachi. He's possibly I would argue he's the hardest boss on the Atlas. Potentia the Foul is Act 8 Doedre, so very mean, lots of chaos damage, which a lot of characters don't have very good mitigation against. Bazur is the Chevron and Brutus mixed fight from the tower. They certainly have some very hard hits. They're not mechanically that difficult, but they're very unforgiving. And then the Cursed King is the harder version of Rigwald. So Rigwald, but with lots of other extra shenanigans there. Rigwald was nerfed a couple of leagues ago. So if any of these make you worried, you don't need to do them as 8 mod maps or anything like that. You can do them as a very easy, very, very easy mod map, in which case the only real effect you get from it being at Awakening level 8 is that, one, you get all the extra loot that we talked about when we were discussing the Shaper and Elder Guardian maps, but you also only have to deal with 1.25 or 4 times their normal hit points and no additional benefits beyond that. Next up we have Defeat Conquerors of the Atlas. This is all about killing Cyrus, because the other 4 you need to kill just to get to Cyrus, so this is one of those challenges that you'll make some progress on very early on. Most people that get 24 will have killed 4 of these 5. Cyrus is a difficult fight compared to the rest of the bosses in the game. Also very mechanical. There are some unforgiving mechanics in there, and at the time I'm recording this, there are some pretty nasty bugs as well. The key unforgiving mechanic is that there are sort of death zones. There are little, oh, not little actually, they're sort of 2/3 the size of a screen. There are these little orbs of death that follow you around at various phases of the fight. Managing them is a major part of the fight, and it's a major challenge with the fight. So Cyrus, you need both technical knowledge of the fight, you need an understanding of what to do with those orbs when they pop up. You need the technical execution to pull that off, and you need your character to be both damaging enough and durable enough. So damaging enough to get through Cyrus's tens of millions of hit points in a reasonable time frame, but also resilient enough that you can tank his unavoidable damage, and so that you've got some leeway for inevitable mistakes over a long fight. Anyways, he's the end boss of the game. He's sort of replacing Uber Elder as the ultimate encounter. He's a small step up from Uber Elder in difficulty, in my opinion, but I'm only just leveling my bossing character now. The key trick is, if you can't beat Cyrus, there's no shame in just simply paying someone else to do it. There are plenty of people in the trade channel, Trade 820, that for one Exalted Orb will kill Cyrus and let you keep all of the loot that drops. Or you can have some sort of alternate arrangement where you say, okay, I won't pay you, but if there's a drop, then we'll bid on it. So we basically have half ownership each, and whoever wants it more can just, you're sort of auctioning it. So for instance, if a 6 Exalted Orb item drops from him, then one person can say, all right, well, I'm going to offer 2.9 exalts for it. The other person says, you know what, I actually really want that gem, so I'm going to offer 3.1. And then they buy out the other person's half because they've bid higher. So that's a couple of ways that it can be managed. But the normal way is that you pay an exalt, and that the person requesting the kill service pays the killer one Exalted Orb, and the killer does the Cyrus fight, and then allows the person requesting the service to own all of the loot. Next up we have Defeat Shaper and Elder. So the Shaper is accessed by killing the 4 of the Guardians, Chimera, Hydra, Minotaur, and Phoenix. Each one of those will drop you a little fragment, and if you put all 4 of them in the map device in the obvious order, then you will get to fight the Shaper in his realm. The same is true of the Elder. As you can see, I've done one Shaper fight so far, and I've sold off all my Elder fragments that I've earned so far. I'm looking for a new set so that I can do this for my own challenges. The Shaper and Elder had considerable numerical buffs going into 3.9. They'd gotten to the point that when they were introduced, they were tough foes, but they were also introduced at a time that player damage output was just so much lower than it is now. Now the Shaper and Elder's hit points have gone up from approximately 18 million in the previous league to approximately 62 million now. This means that you need a bit more technical mastery of the fights to successfully complete these challenges. However, all that really comes down to is knowing what you absolutely must dodge at all costs. So for the Shaper, that is his triple ball and his slam, you must dodge at all costs. Once you're focused on that, then you should be fine to get him down, even if it takes, quite a considerable period of time. You'll also need to manage void anomalies, but if you want to watch a guide on that, I do have one. The Elder, I don't have a guide to the Elder on his own. Essentially, though, he is here's a bit of an interesting case. The initial fight against the Elder is very, very, very easy. He doesn't have very many dangerous attacks. He has an Icicle Barrage, and he has a couple of very well telegraphed attacks that that are really obvious where they're going to hit. He does have one thing that I call a Tentacle Tantrum, where tentacles will sort of pop up, chasing you around the arena. When he does that, you want to stay calm and move as full speed, running around in circles. That phase of the Elder fight's easy. The part that's hard is once you get him down to approximately 25% health, he will then, the fight will change. The Shaper will appear, the Shaper will fight on your side, and then you'll have some craziness after that. The hard part of the Elder fight is after you successfully complete the interlude where the Shaper helps you. After that, the Elder will go absolutely berserk with his attacks. He'll be stuck in the middle, unable to move, but he'll fire off several of his most dangerous attacks over and over and over again, while adds are attacking you, and whilst those adds are shocking you repeatedly. So the Elder fight can be quite tricky, but you'll be able to do it. If you can beat the Shaper, you'll be able to beat the Elder as well. He's numerically easier, and also the mechanics the Elder has allow more reaction time than the Shaper's does. Next up we have Defeat Map Bosses. This is a pure and simple grind that you can expedite a little bit by running maps that are twinned or that inherently have multiple bosses. So if you prioritize running things like your city squares, your precincts and the like, that will help expedite getting to this 1500 but basically just expect that this is going to be something that will be a grind over the league. If you're killing 25 map bosses a day, that means you need to play 2/3 of the days of the league. If you're killing 50 map bosses a day, you can knock this out in a month. Then you'll be able to work out yourself what sort of pace is appropriate for you. Defeat conquerors conditionally. Here we have one of the first hard modes of bosses. So, defeat Baran the Crusader after every square of the arena has become a mana rune and without having been affected by mana rune. Mana rune is the big thing that lights up a full tile and lights up an entire row and column. So the fight against Baran takes place on a 4x4 grid. I'm going to call it I'm going to number it A1 through D4. Baran has a close range attack, a slam that is telegraphed and does massive damage. He has a long range ranged attack where he'll fire something at your feet, and then that'll be a little rune that explodes and deals quite a lot of damage as well. That's not the mana rune. The mana runes are where he says something. It seems to vary. His vocal cue seems to vary, and he raises his hand in the air. Then he'll sort of watch you for a little while, and then at some point he'll set on where you're currently located, and he will fire a beam that connects with you. That beam won't do any damage, but it will cause the tile that you're standing on to glow, as well as everything else in that row and column. So if you're on square B2 at that time, it will cause B1, B2, B3, B4, as well as A2, C2, and D2, all to glow. This glow has a little bit of an activation period, and then once it actually firmly locks in, at that point, those will become armed mana runes. If you step on a square that has a mana rune, your health will drop over time, as will your mana. Now, if you take any mana drain at all to mana rune, then you fail this challenge. So what you're going to want to do is force Baran. You want to be in a situation where you're playing on a very, very tanky character. You want to be able to survive every one of his attacks except his massive overhead slam. And when he does his mana rune animation, which you'll get the hang of once you've run the fight a couple of times, the first time he does it, run immediately to square A1 and stand there. Then let him go through with the mana rune, get it sort of going. Then move out of the affected squares and wait. Keep fighting him, but don't actually get him close to death. Then, when he next gets ready to cast mana rune, you've already set off row A and column 1. You want to get column 2 next time. And the easiest way to do this, you want to maximize the space you've got to move around in. So you want to either set it off in A2 or D2. Note that we're not going to do every single row, we're only going to do every column because that covers every square in the arena. So first time A1, second time either A2 or D2, third time either A3 or D3, and fourth time either A4 or D4. That will ensure that you've got that you've always got at least a 3x2 contiguous area to run around in. And that's really important because you don't want to be in a situation where Baran's lining up for a slam and your only escape is to run onto a mana rune. The other thing that will make this challenge a lot easier is if you have a teleport move skill. Next up we have Veritania the Redeemer without being hit by any tornadoes or without entering the hurricane. The key trick here is that you want to do this on a character that is not a melee character. If you're playing a melee character, sorry. If you're playing any sort of long range character, this can be a bow character, this can be a caster, it can be a minion character, then all you need to do is just remain laser focused on dodging her her tornadoes. When she casts that spell, she will sort of retreat into herself for a bit, and then she'll let out a shriek, and there'll be tornadoes that will fly out in all directions. You want to use a teleport move skill to cross up, once they've moved a little bit towards you, use a teleport move skill to move into the center, to where she was when she cast that spell. If you do that, you'll be fine. Without entering the hurricane contracts as Veritania is damaged. So what you want to do here is have a skill with Culling Strike, so that you can get her, when you start to have much less space, you want to just kill her really quickly. Because again, the Hurricane will constrict your space to dodge the tornadoes in. Don't worry if you stuff this up the first couple of times, you get to fight Veritania many times. Defeat Elhesman the Hunter without causing any tunneling vipers to emerge. The trick here is just to do the fight fast. You'll need Chaos Resistance to do this fight fast. I find that I can't really dodge all of his attacks if I don't have... I can't dodge all of his attacks whilst dealing full damage to him. I have to stop dealing damage to him in order to dodge. And so as a result, I've not got this done yet, even though I've got the minimum damage necessary to do it. I think the minimum damage necessary to do it is probably 500,000 damage a second or so. It's not all that high. But the tunneling vipers seem to emerge 50 seconds after you initiate the fight. So it's just a case of kill him before then, and be aware that the main thing that's going to stop you is dodging the vipers in the pool in the middle. The vipers in the pool in the middle do tremendous amounts of chaos damage. If you don't have chaos resistance, it will wreck you. But if you can come back to this fight with a decent amount of chaos resistance, let's say plus 30, plus 40%, then you should be able to just endure those spits of Cobra Venom, quaff life potions to sort of shake them off, and then take out Elhesman as quickly as possible, focusing all your damage on him. Do that, tunneling vipers won't show up. Next up we have defeat Droxus the Warlord after having destroyed at least 10 Vexillum Mortalis bubbles. All this requires you to do is to prolong the fight. Prolong the fight, and the easiest way to prolong the fight is that every time he spawns a bubble, that you go and you kill it. Spend some time killing trash mobs. Drox the Warlord is probably the least dangerous of the Conquerors as far as his own abilities go. He has his You Are Judged attack, where there's a very, very slow delayed slam. And otherwise, he really doesn't have any devastating attacks. I've had no trouble tanking all of his attacks, except obviously for the slam, when I've done the fight with 3,800, 4,000 hit points on tier 14, 15, 16. So he doesn't do very much damage, and it's a pretty easy fight to just draw out. Next up we have Complete These Encounters 6. This is an economic challenge. So, socket a unique watchstone into a citadel. The unique watchstones, to the best of my knowledge, they only drop from Cyrus, and they seem to drop about 50% of the time. So you'll get one of them if you run Cyrus. Say if you run it 6 times, you'll get one almost for certain. Guardian's Exalted Orbs. I haven't had one of these drop for me personally yet. I feel I've been a bit unlucky. I have had 2 Awakener's Orbs. These drop from the various Conquerors, and they're pretty rare. They drop more often if you've got a high Awakening level, and they are really, really strong crafting implements. I suggest that you research various options for crafting with them. One thing I've done, I got this challenge when I was crafting Elder and Shaper Stygian Vices using the combination of Guardian Exalts and Awakener's Orbs. I would have also got it again when I was crafting a set of 2-tone boots that were item level 86. So I rolled them using fossils to get a pretty good setup that was missing, that had one free affix on it, and then I chose carefully out of the 4 different Guardian's Exalts to find the right one in order to maximize my chances of hitting something great, and I didn't hit anything great. Level an Awakened Gem to level 5. These drop from Cyrus, they're rare and they're expensive, but they're easily available in a trade league, just for an Exalt or so if you go with one of the unpopular ones. And what I suggest you do here, if you're someone who levels a lot, so you run a lot of fast content, the Delve Mines are particularly good for leveling gems, then what I suggest you do is you level a bunch of these and you sell them when they are level 4 and 99%. There will certainly be currency in that for you. You'll be able to make quite a bit of currency out of doing that, because a lot of players simply do not play the game enough to get this Awakened Gem to level 5 themselves. If you're trying to get this through mapping, my best estimate is that you're going to need about 15 or 1600 maps after having already killed Cyrus. So this is quite the grind. This is one of the higher grind challenges. But again, as I say, if you're in a trade league, just pick up one from another player that's already level 4 and close to 5, and it won't take you too long to get there. Next up, we have Defeat Cyrus conditionally. Here, I'm going to have to put together a Cyrus guide later in the league. I don't feel I know the fight well enough to do that yet, but there are several good ones around. Grimro has one, I believe, and I'd suggest having a look at that. That will give you a sense as to what these different skills are and how you'll be able to dodge them. Essentially, though, these are technically difficult fights when you're being very careful not to fail any of these conditions. As players get more and more familiar with the fight, there will be more and more boss kill services being offered in Trade 820, and people will say, "Hey, I'm offering a service. My Cyrus, I will kill 1, 2. I will do it with 1, 2, and 3, but not 4, or I will kill with 2, 3, and 4." It may even get to the point that there's players confident that they can get all 4 of them. Those players will probably charge a couple of exalts for their expertise, but they are definitely worth engaging if you need them in order to get over this hurdle. Complete Deadly Encounters is some of the history of Path of Exile's end bosses, so you'll have to fight Uber Elder. Uber Elder, half the battle is getting there these days. You need the 2 Shaper fragments, which only drop from the Shaper, and you need the 2 Elder fragments, which only drop from the Elder. That's what you require. They're the keys to unlock the Uber Elder fight. And remember that even if you were familiar with the fight in the past, the monster hit points have increased there. So it is a harder fight than it used to be, and it's harder to get access to. However, the rewards are considerably higher because less people farming it means that Watcher's Eyes are worth a lot more. Mastermind at an area level of 83. This one is pretty easy to do. All you need to do is just do a few Jun missions in Tier 16 maps, and then eventually choose to do your Mastermind. You can do your Mastermind early in a league if you want to get it out of the way and then focus on profitable betrayal farming later, or you can just stay focused on profitable betrayal farming early and then eventually do the Mastermind towards the end of the league. That's your choice. Chaeol who dreamt in their domain. This is just a matter of finding Chaeola splinters or a Chaeola breachstone through luck. If you're in SSF, this will take a lot of mapping. A lot of mapping and a lot of doing breaches. If you're in a trade league, you can simply buy a spot into a group that is running purified Chaeola breachstones. There's lots of people running those all the time in Trade 820. Plenty of them will be scams, but many of them will not be. And you'll be able to go in there. Just make sure that you speak with the person running it and make sure they are intending to kill the boss, because a lot of those groups they just skip the boss and they go on to the next breachstone. That won't help you get this challenge credit, although you will still get phenomenal XP from doing a Chaeola breachstone without Chaeola. Avixith, the end of all it is. Avixith is the top boss of the Beyond content. Most of the time, you'd probably get this before about the time that you got 50 Beyond bosses. As you can see, I don't have it. This is just a matter of luck. He can spawn in any tier of map, but every time that you've got a map that has Beyond on it, add Zana's Beyond on top of it, run that, and eventually a Avixith will spawn. He is rare. He is quite rare. He's very rare, actually. But when you get him, you'll know about it. He's a really hard fight. And I wish you luck with him. There's not really any guides that I'm aware of for Avixith, and he's a bit tricky because you're going to be fighting him with map mods, and you're going to fight him at an unpredictable tier. If you get lucky and get him at a low tier, then he'll be really easy. You'll just be able to brute force him and just ignore all of his mechanics. If you get him at a high tier, one of the things you can do is cheese him with line of sight. If you have a character like a mine build or anything like that, you can often position yourself in a way that he can't see you, you can't see him, so neither of you have got line of sight to each other, but there is a spot that you both have line of sight to, and you can throw down a whole cluster of mines there, detonate it, and get ready to run if he chases you around. Next up, we have complete the epilogue quest line. This is one that's interesting. Picking up the pieces and chasing a dream you'll get basically immediately upon killing Kataba. The Elder Slayers is a quest to basically get your first 4 watchstones. After that, the Crusader, Warlord, Redeemer, and Hunter are quests to kill each of those bosses in 4 different octants each. So that's all fine. Then the Awakener of Worlds is to actually kill Cyrus. Cyrus is miles harder than the rest, but we've already had a couple of challenges that require killing Cyrus. So we had several, Conquerors of the Atlas and so on. Basically, you will get this one for free at the same time that you get Conquerors of the Atlas. Lastly, we have the one that's going to be the big barrier if you're going for 40 or 40, and that is complete endgame grinds, which is always a fearsome challenge, but in this one, it's worse than it was last league. So, there's essentially 3 of these that I think are quite reasonable to do on your own. Defeat Metamorphs in Tane's Laboratory, 25 of 175 that I've got there. So I'm only a 7th of the way there, but I'm not necessarily going to go for this myself. To defeat the Metamorphs in Tane's Lab just basically means you'll need to have done you'll need to do about maybe 2,000 maps and run all of your eyes. Now I've been selling most of my eyes. So if you run about 2,000 maps, and eyes will be your limiting reagent, they're the rarest of the Metamorph parts, just stockpile them and go and run them in the lab when you've got a bunch of them. That will let you get there yourself. Alternately though, the easiest way to do this is to find a group doing a Tane's Lab rotation, which is a thing that sort of sprung up in Trade 820 in that community. And what happens there is each player brings 5 full sets of organs, and you go to one person's lab, you run all 5 of theirs. You go to the next person's lab, you run all 5 of theirs, and so on and so on and so on. And these rotations are really good because they will give, you're only supplying 5 sets of organs, but you're getting credit for 30. And you could conceivably do that with 10 sets as well, 10 at a time or whatever, but I think 5 seems to be the norm. Generally with those, the loot rules can be a bit, need to be negotiated. Usually it is permanent allocation, so just loot belongs however the game allocates it. But make sure that you're all on the same page with how loot works. Reach depth 600 in your Azurite mine. This is going to take you doing several dozen Nico missions, maybe even a couple of hundred, and it's ideally done in rotations with other players. The other thing that's to be said about depth 600 is that monsters start having massively higher stats than they have in tier 16 maps at this point. They're going to hit you really hard, and they're also going to have a lot more hit points. There are 2 ways you can cope with this. One option is to just build tankier. Juggernauts are really good for this, and accept that it's going to be a slow grind to kill monsters sometimes, but you're just going to chip away at their health and you'll get them down. And that works. That's tried and tested, and some of the best players in the game have gone a lot further than 600, even in hardcore, with characters like that. The alternative is to acknowledge that any big hit that you take is going to one-shot you, and build accordingly. So prioritizing offense over defense, and just playing a game. Ultimately, you can get even to the point of playing a game of rocket tag with enemies, where if you hit them, they die instantly. If they hit you, you die instantly. And some of the people who delve the deepest in the delve mines can end up pushing as far as 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 depths deep by playing a build that is a total glass cannon. When I say glass cannon, I mean chaos inoculation, so they've got 1 hit point, and 200 or 300 energy shield, and then everything on their gear is dedicated to offense. No resistances, no energy shield, no life, nothing like that, just all-out offense. That said, 600 is the point where a balanced build that favors defense can still function very well. Doesn't even necessarily need to be a Juggernaut. There are certainly minion builds that have gotten to 900 in hardcore delve, and so you can certainly get there. But the ones that are most successful are the 3 tankiest ascendancies, which are the Guardian with the Mana Guardian approach, they are the Juggernaut, and they are the Gladiator with a block approach. So you can consider rolling a character specifically for this, or you can just use a normal mapping character and perhaps make some different gear choices on them. The other thing that will really help you if you're pushing for this is stacking effects that reduce damage you take. Fortify is one obvious one. Fortify buff, if you can get that on your character regularly, that will help you a lot. But also, although it doesn't stack as favorably with Fortify as it used to, there's the Harbinger, League Shield, the Unshattered Will is really good. And there's a lot of other sorts of options like Nebulock, which are tremendously good defensive weapons. Okay, so we've got the third of the easy ones, complete Legion Encounters. And again, I think everyone that's going for endgame grinds needs to do this part. Legion Encounters, you can force a Legion onto a map by paying 6 Chaos Orbs to Zana. In order to have the option to do this, you will need to have about 125 Atlas bonus. At that point, you'll unlock all of Zana's mapping options. Legion is the dead last one. So this can be seen as just a pure Chaos Orb sync, and you will get rewards from those Legion Encounters too. Additionally, you'll find Legion Encounters through normal gameplay as well, so these are just bonus ones. Now we have the 3 hard ones, and you're going to have to pick one of these. The first one is the obnoxious grind of easy content, and that is open chest at the end of the Eternal Labyrinth. You can see I don't like grinding the Eternal Labyrinth at all. I have done it exactly once this league. I'm leveling a second character now, and when it gets to Eternal Labyrinth, I'll have to do it a second time. That's probably going to be all I do because I hate running lab. But the Eternal Labyrinth chess, 500 chess means that you're going to be doing about 90 maximum key runs. A maximum key run is one where you fight Izaro in the first fight without exploiting his weaknesses, fight him in the second fight without exploiting his weaknesses, you find Argus and kill him, and you then go to the finale, maybe picking up some additional keys through other means as well. This will give you, you'll get 1 for killing Izaro, plus 2 for not exploiting his weaknesses, plus 1 for killing Argus is 4 that you can pretty much always get, and then you'll often get more than that as well from other things. However, it's a lot of labyrinths. You're going to need a character that can move fast and that can kill Izaro smoothly and quickly. You will also need something to enchant. You'll need to be you'll need to be carrying a lot of helmets with you and getting enchants on them, because that's a big money spinner. I personally am intending the next labyrinth runs I do, I will be enchanting Crown of the Inward Eye. However, there's plenty of other good helms you can use. You can use a Val Mask. Val Masks are particularly good because if you get a premium bow enchant on them, then you can use the Trash to Treasure Prophecy to turn them into a Fractal Thoughts unique Val Mask. On the flip side, if you get a premium Caster Prophecy, then you can use various other crafting methods because it's still a rare item. You haven't gone and enchanted the unique helmet immediately. So that's one option that you can use, and there are certainly others. Another one that's an excellent choice, if you can source item level 86 close helmets. Close helmets are the ones that, in fact, they don't necessarily need to be 86. 86 will make them a bit better. But if you can source close helmets, you can enchant those, and then if you get a premium minion enchant on them, then you can use the Trash and Treasure Prophecy to turn them into the Baron. On the flip side, if you don't get if you get a different premium one, say for instance if you get a Tornado Shot enchant instead, then you can just roll it as a normal rare item again. So those would be the suggestions I'd take for making sure that you get as much value as you can out of your runs through the labyrinth. But, of course, feel free to experiment, feel free to run other things as well. Then we have the 2 massive grinds. Level 100 requires not dying and running a staggering amount of content. We're talking several thousand maps, or we're talking dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of pure Chayula Breachstones. If you've got the patience to do this, then by all means go for it, and get yourself on that list of, I think it's now about 25,000 people that have ever had a level 100 in Path of Exile. I've actually never leveled past 95 myself because I tend to be too reckless. I tend to go, oh, you know what, I'm going to go and run some difficult content because I feel like I need a break from all the safe stuff, and I need to stop running all of the things that I've got on farm and go and put myself to the test, and then every time I do that, I'll end up losing 10%. The other option is defeating Cyrus, the Awakener of Worlds. Now, spawning 75 Cyruses yourself is totally implausible. Each Cyrus, in my experience, takes about 80 maps to prepare. Maybe a bit less than 80, maybe it's 60, but it's a lot of maps. So, unless you expect to be running 5,000 or 6,000 maps, you're not going to hit this yourself. If you are going to run that many maps, then by all means, go ahead. But the way that you're going to do this is by becoming an absolute master of the Cyrus fight, and then advertising a Cyrus kills service in the Trade 820 channel and potentially other places. You'll then make arrangements with other players, as I was discussing earlier with from the purchaser's perspective. People will come to you and say, I've got a Cyrus, can you kill it? Here's the fees. And you'll go, okay, yep, I'll do that. That will help you get credit for this kill. You'll note that I've mentioned that I haven't personally done Cyrus. I've engaged boss kill services every time I've spawned Cyrus so far. And so you'll notice that I'm getting credit for that as well. The key to that is that the person that you're carrying, so both you as the killer and the person you're carrying, need to be in the instance at the moment that Cyrus dies. They don't need to be in danger. They can be in the entrance hall, so the place where there's a little bit of a lore event before you start fighting Cyrus. But if they enter the Templar laboratory, then Cyrus will summon them to the center of the arena. So you don't want that happening. Anyways, hopefully that gives you a bit of a sense as to what to expect with the challenges, the harder challenges. If you've got any comments or questions, definitely fire away below. Otherwise, I'm going to leave it there. I hope you have a good one.